Welcome to the 4 o'clock work session of the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners for November 19th, 2013. We have 3 items on our agenda for discussion, again at the work session. The first is a quarterly report regarding downtown TIF activities presented by Warren County Downtown Economic Development Authority Chairman Doug Gorman.
Hey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, staff, Chief. Always sits behind everyone. Thank you so much. I will make this short so you can get on to more pressing things, but we do have a continuation of some good news, so I want to give you kind of an update of where we are. You all have had this in your packet, so I'll kind of go through it, but it does kind of give you the scope and the size of our TIF. And by the way, I'll break the news. There'll be a report coming out that you'll all get in December from a financial reporting magazine that's going to claim that the Bowling Green TIF is one of the more successful TIFs in America, not in the state of Kentucky, but in America. So we're pretty excited about that. This does show completed. We're with our state reports, $193 million so far in the TIF district, and under construction, another $36 million. We do have a couple things we're talking about today, which is also exciting, for an additional $32 million. And so those right there again is at approaching $250 million worth of development in this district. So just to give you an idea of what's going on right now, of course the mixed-use wrap at Block 6 is underway. Hit Sense has been up there for quite a while. You all will each get an invitation. I think it's the first week of December. I'm not sure when they're having their ribbon cutting. But Connected Nation moved in officially last week on Monday. They moved over the weekend, and so a week ago from yesterday they there in. So the whole 4th floor is being occupied by HitSense and Connected Nation. We're going to talk today about the Hyatt place that's up there at Block 12. We had that ribbon cutting groundbreaking that many of you were at, and hopefully that is going to take place end of November 2014. So about a year from now they're hoping to have that going. They have getting all the groundwork and pre-work done on that. Also, you're going to see that Block 12, it's really 12A. 12 is where the Alumni Center is. Block 12, mixed-use wrap Phase 1, which that is what we are presenting, and you've had in your packet there from the Tritonback group out of Columbia, Missouri. But it's a 450-car parking garage, 30,000 square foot commercial development, and 328 beds, and they're hoping to be open by the spring of 2015. They do have 2 phases to that, and that's a $40 million private investment out of Columbia, Missouri, which is an awesome development. I could get you more information on that to look at what they've done in Columbia at the University of Missouri, and they want to do a similar project right here too, which is great. And then you've probably seen that Block 16, the Student Life Foundation. It's on the left side of Kentucky Street. Thank you, Mayor. Left side Kentucky Street, going down Kentucky Street, but that's Block 16, and there's 220 units in there, of course, shooting to open those in August, be finished with those so they can move students in of August of 2014. This, of course, is what's being worked on right now at HitSense, and of course that 4th floor, I will tell you, they've got some they're in negotiations with 2 or 3 tenants to add to this. A couple of them are extremely significant, so the leasing opportunities have really taken off, which is exciting news for everyone that's been involved, and it'll be great news for the city of Bowling Green and for this development. And that's just a rendering, again, of that courtyard. If you've gone by there and seen the plaza that they're working on with the restaurants, with the announcement of those restaurants, that's close to what it's going to look like. I don't know if the trees will be that big, but it'll look good like that. That is a rendering of the Hyatt place, which is going right there. It's a very impressive building. That Hyatt brand is pretty new. The Hyatt Place brand of Hyatt Regency is pretty new. But this is a great thing with the Wellspring Group, Doug Artuzio's group. They have the Staybridge Inn here in town on Campbell Lane. If you've been to that facility, these guys do things first rate. This project is really going to change the face of the TIF. We're extremely excited about that. And this is what a rendering of what Tritonback is going to do right here. If you look down here, for instance, on the bottom right-hand side of that, where you see those flat roofs right there, that is where the existing junior food store is right now at Center Street. They have purchased that property as well. You know, one thing I give these guys credit for, we met with them, told them what properties were available. They're very aggressive, and they privately got all this property under contract themselves, which is the best way to do it. There's probably 7 or 8 different landowners at this block, and they have optioned all that land and got it under control. So you can see the kind of development they want to do with this student housing with a courtyard in the middle. That is a parking garage that would be for this development that they'll build themselves as well on the far side there. So we're extremely excited about that project. It's going to be a tremendous boost as well. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or whatever, but you do have, I think you have those on your subdeveloper agreements. Is that this evening on the for the Hyatt and for Block 6, which I did not have a picture of the same group that is doing this Tritonback group that's doing the Block 12. They're also going to build the apartments at Block 6 in the front part of that wrap. And so 48 apartments, and it's approximately $6 million, I think, Gene, on that they're doing as far. So there's 3 subdeveloper agreements that you'll be have a chance to talk about tonight. But so so going forward, that's again approximately $35 million right now worth of development that'll that's coming our way this year in the 2014, which is awesome as well. All of it's private development. We're pretty excited about that. So onward and upward, and we will have another announcement before the end of the year that involves the city and the county and Western and the medical center and all the people that have been involved in TIF. Hopefully we'll have an announcement on that shortly when we get all those things in place there.
Are you going to make the presentation tonight? Or is Kevin Brooks doing that?
Oh, I was not planning on it. I
Okay.
guess Kevin is. I better call and see.
Well, I left a message this morning with there's still some questions that staff had that didn't get answered, so I want to make sure that that got taken care of.
I'll find out for you, and hope not to be here, but if he's not, I'll be back. But I was not told, but I can find out. I assume he's got it squared away.
It's on his calendar.
And I guess, Gene, you're sending him things back and forth about someone
No,
is.
I called and asked him to get in touch with Jeff. I don't think he's done that
Oh,
yet
it's
today.
okay. Whatever, that's fine.
Yeah. All right.
I'll make sure you do right after this, so that's fine.
Appreciate
Okay,
the
thank you.
comments. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Gorman? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the Bowling Green Area Chamber of Commerce regarding potential economic development opportunities. Mr. Febo, do you have a comment here?
Just that Mr. Bunch is here today from our Chamber of Commerce to present some changes that have occurred that could affect us and the Chamber. And I think they're hopeful changes, so I just give it to Ron to explain.
Mr. Bunch.
Thanks, sir. First off, I really want to thank you. I mean, without your support and your staff support, we couldn't have days like today where we had the Lieutenant Governor here to announce yet another new company coming to our community. So thanks for everything you do to help make that possible. What I wanted to talk to you about tonight is doing more of that. I mean, to continue on the partnership and to work together. And the concept I want to put forth, in your packet, you saw an article from Lexington. And in that article from Lexington, they talked about the creation of an economic development fund. In their case, they originally asked for $2 million. I think they ended up putting $1 million in there. But they had a separate fund to be able to do incentives to go after the kinds of companies they want to have in their community and to diversify that. And it's a similar concept that I'm bringing forth for you all tonight. You should have the PowerPoint printed, but I didn't do it once, so I figured you'd stop me along the way if you had questions. But the first thing I'm seeking for you all to consider is to create an economic development fund, a fund where we would have the ability to build up revenues so that we could develop programs with staff to bring back to you, like JDIP, that would help us achieve the city's economic development goals. We would also hope that in creation of this fund, that you would allow for things that help build capacity for economic development. I'm going to talk about a couple of those things. And I've actually had these in Virginia and Florida where I was previously, and so I'm confident we can work with staff. But the funding mechanism that we have in mind versus what Lexington had in mind is a little bit different. In this case, there was a Supreme Court ruling recently that is going to bring some properties into the tax rolls that were previously not on the tax roll. So you'll be collecting some money, and I talked with Jeff earlier that tax bills were physically sent out by the city. So you should collect about $84,000 this year that you hadn't collected previously. And what we're asking is that you consider putting that money in a fund this year and going forward so that we'll have a small pot that could build over time that we could work from. The first recommendation from that pot, should you agree to create that, we'd like you to empower the mayor to be able to sign on to an advocacy agenda. We've put together a 5-party agreement with a firm called Capital Link Consultants, where it would be the chamber, the CVB, the airport, the county, and we hope the city. We've had all the other parties sign on to a collaborative agenda where we could advocate for specific projects that would benefit the city and the county and our business space. So using this money that was coming from targeted businesses that hasn't been used in the budget before to help us make more economic development happen. And some of the activities that we'd be advocating for, they wouldn't be generic. It would be like getting air service in Bowling Green. It'd be like roadway improvements to enhance economic development in Bowling Green and Warren County. It'd be activities like that where we would seek to advocate for. So things that would have a direct financial benefit to the city and the county and help further economic development is a concept in there. As I call on our existing companies, one of the things I hear from them is that they really struggle to find people to fill open positions. And considering that the city gets about 70% of its revenue from occupational tax, not only is that not good from the standpoint of ensuring your citizens get jobs quickly, it's also not good from a revenue standpoint. And so another activity we may ask you all to consider is some collaboration to help fill open positions, which would then put your citizens back to work faster, generate more tax revenue. And lastly, the last item out of the pot is we'd like to be able to work with your staff to create programs like a deal closure fund or other incentive programs that our peers in other states and some in Kentucky have that would come out of this pot so that we can help close more projects, specifically projects that might be technology projects or other things like that that the city would want to have as part of its strategic plan. So that's the basic gist of our proposal. Could I answer any questions?
Yes, sir.
Ron, one of the last things you mentioned there, if I understood it correctly, having the city to help in the employment of individuals, how would the city go about that?
Well, we don't know exactly. What we would do is collaborate with staff to develop some methodology to help make that happen. An idea might be that we work together with the county to hire sort of a workforce ombudsman that could specifically work with the companies that we call on to act almost as an extension of their HR department so that they see the candidates that come in and help make sure they have good quality candidates coming from the public workforce system. Because what we're having happen right now is, let's say we've got 10 companies with openings and you've got Ron Bunch applying. Well, I'm applying to those same 10 companies. Those companies are spending that same money to look at my file, potentially interview me, that sort of thing. And so if we had a centralized activity, we could help ensure that those positions got filled quicker, which meant you were collecting revenue quicker, which meant your citizens were back at work quicker.
So where does the Career Center here in Bowling Green come into that play?
The One-Stop Career Center?
Yes.
That's part of the public workforce system that federal dollars come down for. And the One-Stop in Bowling Green is meant to serve the entire 10-county region. What I'm proposing here is that working in concert with that activity, we'd have a specific approach, whether it be a person or some other approach, to ensure that in Bowling Green and Warren County, our companies are getting top priority to get the talent they need to grow. So it would be in addition to working with that system. But again, we would want to collaborate with staff and see if staff had other ideas on a more efficient approach. Our mission is to make sure the companies have the talent they need to grow.
So each one of the entities in the consortium would have to put up X number of dollars on a continuous basis for this proposal.
On the legislative proposal, that's a separate item to requesting to be funded from this pot. The city's exposure is only $500 a month or $6,000 for the year. That matches the other amounts that the county, CVB, and airport are putting in. The chamber's putting in quite a bit more than that per month. The workforce proposal would be something separate and distinct, much like the incentive proposals would be. Did I clarify that or just confuse things further?
Well, we would be over and above what is done on a regional basis, and Ron's asking us to target possible extra funds to job force development here in the city. Is that correct?
Basically, yes, sir.
And those funds are coming from the tax revenue that we did not receive in the past, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the 6,000, do you expect it to come from those taxes as well?
Yes,
So we're
ma'am.
not looking at 84 plus 6, so 90 something?
No,
Just
ma'am.
okay.
Yeah, there was really two steps. Step one, would you all agree to creating a pot where the 84.7 would go into this year and hopefully in future years so that it built over time? And then I was recommending the first expenditure from that being, because the other four other parties have signed on and we are moving forward. We would love to have the city sign on and join.
Did WKU sign on?
WKU's not signing on to that. They have some prohibitions, but we are working closely. We would thoroughly support the recommendations for Western and for Sky CTC, but because of their role in higher ed, they can't be part of this.
So the city of Bowling Green would be, in this particular example, be requested to do some of the same things we are already doing in attracting with you and the state jobs to the community, such as special occupational tax programming for prospective employers,
In the legislative proposal,
wherever. I guess I'm getting a little confused as
yes, sir.
to monies. In other words, we, along with you and the state, provide incentives for a company coming in with jobs.
Yes, sir.
They don't have to pay occupational taxes 4 or 5 years or 3 years, whatever the number is.
Yes, sir.
So these things that deal with money from each one of the individual entities, this is going to be over and above what we already are doing.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That is absolutely a fact.
But it's, at this point, governed by the extra tax dollars that we're not collecting but could be. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And to give you an idea, when I was in Virginia, and I was in Virginia for 7+ years, that was over a decade ago. In Virginia, we gave $2,000 cash per job up front. The Tobacco Commission gave $2,000 per job cash up front, and the state gave $2,000 cash per job up front, plus donated land and did other things. And so the more attractive the projects are, the more incentives that other places have to attract those. And so we'd have to develop the right programs here and make sure we're getting a return on investment. But right now we have the JDIP, which matches a part of KBI, but we really have no other tools. And so if we're going to be successful recruiting white-collar jobs and other jobs that we want to have here that we haven't had a lot of success thus far, we're going to need to develop other tools. You're fortunate, I think, in the sense that you've got this pot of money that you haven't put in your budget elsewhere to date that you could set aside and have that to actually draw from to kind of pay it forward and do more deals. And that's what our hope was, to work with your staff to do those sorts of things.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think I understand as far as the legislative collaboration. It's
Yes,
going to be
ma'am.
5 entities, all contributing $6,000 if we agree to that per year. But then on this economic development fund, which is going to come from the new tax revenue, who all's donating to that? These same 5 or others?
The Economic Development Fund would be a fund of the city.
Just
And
we
it-
are the only ones contributing to
Yes,
that.
ma'am. And it's the money, your portion of the money that you haven't collected before that would fund that. And then, like the legislative proposal, you all would consider potential programs from it in the future. We'd work with staff to bring those forward.
Can I make a few comments, Mayor?
Sure.
My thoughts on this were that, and I think Ron is in agreement that we would somehow bundle this economic development fund somehow inside our job development incentive fund and let the job development incentive program committee, which is made up of Commissioner Kevin, you want to help me on this? Commissioner Waltrip,
Commissioner Waltrip,
Commissioner
Hill, and myself.
and yourself, to discuss the spending or the allocation, I guess, of these funds as Ron makes a proposal to, hey, let's put it here or let's put it there. But we would put this new money, $84,000, in the job development incentive fund. We would make sure we earmark it as separate from the other monies that go into that fund. I don't see that as a problem. But either let that accumulate over a couple years, the $84,000, let it grow, and then that committee decide what you want to do with it. But that was kind of what we had casually talked about in some of our meetings previously. I don't really see I don't want to say justification, but I don't know that an $84,000 annual revenue stream justifies a whole new fund that we track. I feel like we could bundle it in with the job development incentive fund and work it that way, and let the committee make decisions and govern how that money gets spent. If that's
perfect.
I think Ron, you agreed to that, didn't you?
Yes, sir. When we were talking about fund, we weren't necessarily talking about from an accounting perspective,
Right.
but just having something that could build over time that you could use to close economic development deals, which would then generate a return beyond even that initial investment.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important to say that some of the things Ron is talking about, the incentives, we already do. The JDIP can never be dismissed because we're giving up 1% of 1.85, so we're giving up more than we're getting to incent new businesses. Whenever there's a need to reduce the amount of money we take on an acre of land at Transpark, we've always been open to that, or open to providing that land for free. We do a variety of things. This would be just another asset in our toolbox. So, for example, one example could be, let's say we needed a new storm drainage inlet at a Transpark to support a business. You might have $25,000 in this pot that Ron could say, hey, company, we'll take from the $25K to put this inlet in so you don't have to. So that might be a use of it. The bigger lift that Joe's intimating is about where do we tread on the workforce issue, because we purportedly have a group that is responsible for that. Do we now get involved in that, or is it going to be redundant? I don't know. That's some things we have to talk with Ron from the staff level. What we'd like to do, all your questions are extremely valid, and we'd like to get with Ron and see where we are and come back with a recommendation if you guys are open to that.
I'd like to see that there's some restrictions placed on it where we don't have that redundancy. And, you know, we do have maybe not total control where we're going to try to micromanage it, but we want to make sure the money's used for the right purposes.
I could see a specialized deal where, let's say you had a company that wanted to come in and they needed a special training program that was going to cost $25,000. That was going to be for a company in the Transpark. That might be a perfect marriage. There has to be certain parameters set up, and we're open to doing that if you all want to give us the go-ahead.
I'm on board. I think that what you've laid out is going to really improve, particularly in the area of getting these companies the workers that they need. So I like the entire concept, actually.
I do have one question or comment.
Yes, sir.
The commission has traditionally stayed out of on lobbying efforts on the like you said, the generic proposals supporting any kind of statewide initiative or national or international initiatives. So this will be specifically for a benefit to this community and pretty much this community only.
Yes, sir. And each member of the 5 would help craft what is advocated for, but it's things like WKU growth, Sky CTC, commercial air service, roads in Bowling Green and Warren County, things like that is what we expect it to be. Because through other organizations, I'm on the Kentucky Chamber Board, KAED Board, we advocate for those general business improvement things already. This was specific and of specific benefit is what we had in mind. We also I think it's pretty neat that we're able to collaborate and do this versus us individually to have these contracts. So I think you're leveraging the agenda of all the other groups too, so I think that's kind of nice.
Well, I'm not a big fan of lobbyists, but you kind of have to have their ear, and all of us have, we're part-time public servants and full-time workers elsewhere, so it's not like I can live in Frankfurt like the people across the street do.
It's a specialized profession, and we recognize at the Chamber that we did not have that expertise on staff, and so we found should be one of the top 3 to 5 lobbying firms in Kentucky. And I think we've been able to negotiate a really good contract with them. And like I said, we've got the other 4 parties signed on. We're starting to work with them, and we'd love to have the city join that list.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea, and thank you for bringing this to you. I will let you know I will have a hard time supporting these funds, lobbying for an organization that has their own lobbyist and pays someone to be in Frankfurt. So I will want it just to focus on the city of Bowling Green that does not have an organization that does not have a lobbyist of their own or someone on their payroll to be in Frankfurt.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Do
you.
any of these 5 do?
None of these do. My comment is
Okay.
that I don't want our money, our $6,000 the city would be put in, to be lobbying for another organization, not one of these, but another organization in
I'm sorry,
Bowling
I
Green that
misunderstood.
has their own lobbyist.
I understand what you're
Understood.
saying.
They can use their funds.
I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Thank you very much
misunderstood
for your
what you said. I
support.
apologize.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Bill.
Buncher, appreciate it. Next, we have an update related to our 2014 Stormwater Program. Mr. Fibbo.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the signature programs of our community is our effort as a city to address the stormwater issues in our community. For the last handful of years, we've put together a programmatic effort to address some of the more severe stormwater issues in the city. Some of those projects, we completed already, and I think are working and well received by the community. We have a matrix in which we allocate limited funds. Today with us is Kyle Hunt, our assistant engineer, and he's here to present for you the fiscal 2014 stormwater program and recommendations for you to vet for approval for doing this coming year. Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. DeFebo. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, as Mr. DeFebo said, we are here this afternoon to present to you the candidate projects for the fiscal year 2014 Stormwater Mitigation Program. Before I talk about the specific projects in detail, I'd like to provide you all with a brief background of the program itself. Of course, the catalyst for the program was the historic storm of May 2010. It was that event that the area experienced just over 10 inches of rain in a 2-day period. And I'm sure you all can remember this resulted in multiple road closures. Many were impassable due to high water for several days. And this also resulted in flooding of numerous private properties as well. After that event, the board tasked the Public Works Department with developing a program to address some of the more problematic drainage areas around the city. And that program and the process through which we select these projects was approved in September of 2010. The objective of the stormwater program was to establish a rational process for comparing these projects and establishing an order in which they will be constructed. For this year, fiscal year 2014, we have approximately $640,000 available to spend on these projects. $500,000 is allocated as part of the FY14 budget, and then we have approximately $140,000 from underspending from previous years. To date, as part of the program, we have completed several projects. Those include drainage basins at South Park Drive on the Paul Walker Golf Course, the Covington Street Basin project, which was probably our biggest project to date. We installed a pump station to drain the intersection of Audubon Drive and Glenley Road, and that carries water to a basin on Hammond Circle. And then currently in design, we have 2 projects, and those are a basin at Smallhouse and Ridgecrest, and then also Oliver Street. And this flow chart shows how a request goes from being just that, a request that a citizen may have, to becoming an actual construction project as part of the program. Again, whether it be from an elected official or a citizen, we get a call or an email that there is a problem drainage area within the city. Public Works staff goes out and inspects the location. If there's an imminent safety hazard, then we take immediate corrective action to fix that. And if it's not, if it's something that can be put on hold temporarily, then that becomes what we call a maintenance project, at which time the operations division within Public Works will address that, and I'll talk more about operations in just a second. But if for some reason a particular project, just as say South Park or Covington, is above and beyond what our operations division is capable of mitigating, whether it be just due to the size of the project like Covington, or whether it will draw resources away from completing other projects, then it goes into the prioritization for the mitigation program. And here is a brief breakdown on the operations response to drainage requests. And again, they play a significant role in storm mitigation themselves. We break these activities into both maintenance and non-maintenance activities. As far as non-maintenance activities, Operations Division in FY 2013 completed 166 service requests, and these are separate from the maintenance activities that I'll talk about in just a second. But this is approximately a 42% increase since FY 2010 and since we've experienced that storm in May of 2010. Maintenance activities, those are activities that operations performs on a regular basis. They include cleaning out or inspecting over 1,000 drainage structures, either before or after a significant rain event. And then one aspect of the maintenance that is crucial to keeping the storm systems clean is the debris removal. And that consists of 1,100 tons of leaves removed by the Operations Division in FY 2013, as well as 300 tons of sweet stripping debris. So they are able to keep a portion of this out of the drainage system and keep that from potentially causing other problems. Some of the larger projects that our Operations Division has recently completed include sinkhole repairs at both Talbot and Foxmore Drives. They've completed ditching along North Sunrise and Singletree Way, and currently under construction, they are working on the water quality basin at the Crosswinds Golf Course. In addition to completing these, there are also about 55 other drainage-related service requests that they have in the queue, and seemingly more come in every week. So that's one of the purposes of the mitigation program, is to be more comprehensive and facilitate construction of these larger projects. Again, in that flow chart, you could see prioritization was a category, and that basically determines in what order are these projects constructed. And when we look at a particular location, we actually try to answer 4 questions at each spot. We look at how widespread and how severe flooding is at a particular location, and those two sort of go together. We look at road closures and also private property impacts. With private property impacts, we look to see if flooding was limited to just a yard, or if water entered the crawl space or the actual living area. And the more severe, the more widespread a location is impacted, a higher score it will receive. We look at how often an area is flooded. More frequently flooded areas obviously receive a higher score. And then we also look at, of course, how much we estimate a project to cost. So lower estimated costs get a higher score, in essence, to get a bigger bang for the buck with what funds we have available. The next couple of slides show the prioritization factors. I won't get into detail too much, but you have those in your handout. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And with that said, here are the 2014 top 10 projects. The ones that we propose to you this afternoon are highlighted in red. We have the Basin near the end of Canton Avenue. We have Kenton Street between Lane Avenue and Lehman Avenue, Brownslock Road near Veterans Memorial Lane, and Fifth Avenue between College and Center Streets. And I'll go into detail on each project. Unfortunately, we don't have any pictures from 2010 at each of these locations, but I'll provide some brief detail. These pictures for the Canton Basin are from February 29th, 2012. You can see here, these pictures were taken after the water had started receding, but you can see the limits of the debris line in the road. And then here at the bottom right is another picture of the basin with it being full. Here's just an overhead aerial view of the project. Here is the existing limits of the basin. Options are somewhat limited with each of these projects. If an easy solution presented itself, they wouldn't be on this list. So the existing storm system is here. One thing we could look at possibly is increasing capacity via some additional excavation within this basin to get the water level down below the elevation of the road.
Before you leave that if you don't mind, I'm asking a question now.
Sure.
Those are both privately owned. Does this imply that we now become possessors of them, or are we just taking easement to fix it and it's up to them?
Should have an existing easement.
I believe this one is private, but there should be an existing easement around.
So we're
basin.
responsible to do that particular one? Because we get code enforcement calls all the time, is the reason I'm asking.
I think we went into an agreement with the property owners on that to start taking care of that a few years ago. Did we not?
We have done some work there. Part of this was an early project. We did some ditching off of Ashley, and we did some improvement in the basin. There's drainage easement around that. With an easement, we will go in and do structural repairs. If there's a problem with a dry well or something like that, it would be the property's owner's responsibility to maintain the basin.
Is that behind the old orthopedic building?
Yes, sir. It is right there.
And there's a tremendous watershed that comes from the far left of that map there on Karen Circle and comes back over to this spot.
It's actually a drainage structure in that person's backyard. It's
Yeah.
in the middle of her driveway.
There is. There's a wall
Remember
across.
we went out there?
Twice.
In the 98 storm, this water got so high that it spilt over a wall
Yeah.
and into some backyards over here, as well as the water coming from that side of the wall. So,
Right. I remember it well.
It's got a little history behind it.
Any other questions on this one?
Thank you.
Okay. Here is Kenton Street between Lane and Lehman Avenue. Basically, there's a large amount of water that comes off of the bypass and drains down toward Kenton Street. And then also there's an existing storm system here. And potentially what we could do is install some curb and gutter along the edge of the road to kind of divert the water toward Lehman and away from these properties. And one thing we will look at doing is investigating this system upstream to see if there are any improvements that we can do to lessen the impact that the water has in this area. Brownslock Road is another location. Again, options for this area are limited. There's an existing low area here near Veterans that we have multiple reports of flooding documented. And there's a existing basin in this area just to the south of the site. A couple things we could do are possibly divert water from this area upstream and then possibly install some additional piping to carry water away from the low area. And the final location is between Fifth Avenue between College and Center Streets. These are additional portions of additional storm systems that are already in the ground. One thing that we could do would be to possibly pipe to these systems, either the one along Center or the one along Fifth. I know we are proposing to do some work on Jones Alley, so that may be incorporated into some of this work as well. So,
Where does that water go?
I think that goes into the Whiskey Run system.
Used to play over there.
Yeah, and there's the Basin, which is off screen, across the intersection of I believe 6th and Veterans in Kentucky.
Is that handling the stormwater from that area pretty well? I know they expanded it and put another
I believe so.
structure
I don't
in.
believe we have any reports.
We haven't had any recent reports. Of course, there's been a few things downtown. The Basin put in with the TIF and the parking structure was one in an effort to capture more water before it gets to that location. A few years back, we've had that overtop once in last 5 or 6 years, but again, that was before that Basin, the TIF put in. So we haven't had any reports of it since then. So again, we believe it's functioning very well. In addition, there's a water quality basin added in there as now, in that basin now.
When I was growing up, all of that was open. Right here on College Street, that water would go right back through, up under the bottom of a Renault dealership, car dealership, to where the line comes back up to 5th Street and around the old graveyard there.
And with that, are there any additional questions?
Any other questions?
I have
Yes, sir.
the project in Oliver. Is that the entire length of Oliver? Is that certain sections? And the reason I ask, I was over there with the rain that we received Sunday.
Right.
It just happened to come through there.
I believe for that project we are proposing a basin mid-block between, I believe, Canton and Basin in that low area, making some improvements to that area to handle
The area
that.
that I saw that was up in their yards, it wasn't up to the house yet, but it was toward, I think that's toward Holmes.
Okay.
Maybe that's in the same area you're talking about.
I believe it is.
So Karen is the road that goes into Oliver from Weston.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The location we're talking about is across from the church. Yeah, the basin is.
That's pretty far down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
That may
not
be.
what I'm
There
talking
are a
about.
couple low areas on Oliver, so this
Yeah.
may be the one closer.
This
to
is
the,
one when you come off of Scottsville Road, you go down, you stay on Oliver till you turn left like you're going to Broadway, United Methodist there.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah.
I was going to say the flooding problem was tremendous right there.
Mm-hmm. No, we're looking to
Okay,
address
so that'll
that
take care of that.
with a project.
And there's another area on Covington in front of the park. It would be from the entrance. Yeah, Jeff. You know, I just saw it, and it may flood every time, and I just don't know.
Well,
but it was out in the road where the vehicles had to go in the oncoming lane.
Yeah, I saw that one yesterday myself, and a lot of times during leaf season, those leaves will plug a grate, and
I think that was it.
I believe that was the case on that one.
Okay. And then my last question, I think, is the project rankings for number 2, 3, and 4, and I'm sure that they're not being addressed because of the cost.
Due to the
involved.
cost, that's correct, sir.
How do we eventually get to those projects? And you all may have said this before, and I just have forgotten that, but how do we ever get to the point where we take care of those?
Right. Well, basically, if we want to get, like I said, if we want to get the biggest bang for the buck, we'll skip those projects and do as many as we can with what funds we have available. Potentially, what we could do is we could either dedicate those as a separate capital project or hold the money for successive fiscal years to save up.
How long have those 3 projects been on the list and been up toward the top and haven't been addressed, obviously?
I believe those have been toward the top since the inception of the program, so for the past 3 years.
They weren't the first ones. They weren't at the top.
Right, they weren't at the
first
top.
2
They've kept
years.
working their way
Working
up.
their way up.
Right, so we've knocked projects off the list.
So at some point, are we going to have some strategy to deal with them? And you gave out a couple of options there, but is that something that staff is going to bring to us as an option to deal with those?
The bottom line, it gets down to us either saving the money. I don't think we have that level of cash without affecting our basic operating stream, or to take on more debt.
Will the state not participate with us on the bypass?
Jeff, you may have.
Of course, we'd look to the state to partner with us. Part of the infrastructure where that is draining becomes a city system, so it's kind of odd. We've got a city system with the highway crossing through. Certainly, we would look to them to partner on this project, and any assistance we could get from them, we'd gladly take.
Has the Cave Mill Hunting Creek situation improved or deteriorated at all since the realignment of the road?
Realignment, and we're working out a few drainage issues. We have addressed some up above it. We're looking to try to cut water off before it gets there. Now, I believe in the 2010 storm, we had water actually rising up in that location, which is indication of a karst connection, where we're taking water elsewhere. It's coming underground, and hydrostatic pressure was making that rise from other locations. So,
Actually flooded, what, 2 days after the rain event,
yes,
didn't it?
So it's hard to fight with Mother Nature on that one in some ways. There are ways to address that, and basically looking at going in and raising infrastructure higher than that flooding elevation.
Again, my only a concern that I have is that someone sits in these seats 4 or 5 years from now and they see the same projects. I'd like to see some strategy, or at least some options of strategies. Maybe that's a retreat issue, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Anyone else? All right, that's the last item we had on the work session. Are there any other items from the Board of Commissioners for policy initiatives? Seeing none, sir?
I would like to ask, I don't know whether it fits under this category or not, or wait until the regular meeting. When we talk about, and Kevin's here, the TIF blocks, can we get a definition on our ordinance pertaining to when you refer to block 50 without those of us that don't have a map? I know I've got one coming to me now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when someone else is reading this document and they're reading block 75. Where is block 75? What streets surround block 75? That's all I'm asking. We don't need to go any further.
You can have a map, and then you can also have a list. It's a little bit more complicated than that because the city block numbers and the state block numbers aren't perfectly aligned. We've talked about remedying that. He's got Jeff's got the code that can translate from one to the other, but at some point we may be.
All I was looking for.
So you'll know what we're talking about when we give you a number? Yeah.
In other words, block 75, well, it's Center Street, College Street, 5th and 6th.
Yes.
There's the block.
It's the Da Vinci Code.
It is. So was he just handed a map, or do you all? We'll be happy to provide all of y'all.
I don't need one. I just would like
We put you've got it. Yeah, you.
The ordinance document that we read whenever we have them on the agenda. Block 75 and the description of block 75 right beside it.
We can do that, and perhaps when we do an order or an ordinance, we ought to do more than just that number, because we ought to just say the block surrounded by Kentucky 12th, just say it.
Right.
That's
exactly
a lot more permanent than these numbers we keep using. So, but I understand the question.
Okay. It was very easy when there was only block 1, 2, 3, and 4. We all knew where it was at. Get 125 blocks. Well, give us a description of what block we're talking about. We can visually see it on paper.
Anything else? All right, we'll return at 7 o'clock for our regular agenda. Thank you for tuning in.